The Union without name Ukraine presents the life stories of the people who have become the victims of the war. A human being, I love you, Phil Boston. These words are important for all the members of the Union. These words are important for us. There is war in our country. There is death, famine, pain, suffering. Feel this through our stories. Be with us. What was your life like before this war? Different. Sometimes I was happy, sometimes not. Good times, bad times. But in overall, now I understand that I was happy. My life was just perfect. I was in maternity leave. My son was growing up. Now he's 2.5 years old. My husband worked for a living. We had some plans for life. We were taking care of our son, and everything was just great. How great our life was until February 24th. Where are you from? Why did you move here? We got here, unfortunately, because of the war. Our relatives live here, so we were forced to flee from Odessa to Brody. How did you live before the war started? Tell us about your life. Like lots of other people, we worked, we dreamt, we planned. I was studying, I had my classes. It was such a beautiful city. You can't even imagine. They had paved the roadways, planted trees. City was so green, lots of parks, so beautiful, amazing. And now there is nothing. It was just wiped from the face of the earth. I was walking through the city and I saw that all the houses were so black and burnt. There were no windows, just joineries. Which houses were not burnt, they are just ruined to the ground. What did the word war mean for you in the past? What it means now? Difficult to express. It's so voluminous, terrible. I wish no one would see and hear things like that. I mean, next generations. Because it's a terror, it's death, it's blood, it's fear, which gets so deeply into your heart and soul. It's really, really terrible. It's horror. The war has changed everything. Our life has turned upside down. Освободители from Russian Federation deprived me from my job, deprived my husband from his work, deprived my son from his room. But now I got to understand that a person doesn't need so many things. The most important now is the fact that our family is together. This full-scale war makes me feel pain, suffering. I'm very scared for my family, all my acquaintances, military, our defenders. I could even say that I'm scared for the whole nation, which came together like never before. There is no more Western Ukraine or Eastern Ukraine. We just have our country, Ukraine. That's it. Where did you work? I have worked at the school number 4. What was your life filled with? School, kids, family, parents. I am a lawyer. At this moment, I volunteer at the Center of Free Legal Aid, regional center of Luhansk and Kharkiv regions. In the peaceful time, I worked as a doctor at the military hospital, and my husband worked there as well. Our children went to school. Everything was just fine. We lived like many other families. I had been working as an electric welder for 31 years at the plant. Which plant? Different ones. Ilichas, Azovstal. I had many business trips over the years. I have visited Makiivka, Kramatorsk for my job, all Donetsk region. What has this war done to your life? My life has been ruined. It has been crippled. I was under such a big stress tension, and as I'm living with Parkinson's disease, because all of this, my left leg got completely disabled. I also have arthrosis on the right one, and I was put into hospital here because of that. First, let's say it was a week or two of adaptation. We still couldn't believe. As we are our occupied territory, there were not so much shelling or bombing. It was quite calm and quiet, especially the first week, until the Russians got into the town. They have got into our villages, our towns. They got there and started making everything up to their will. This period, these 2 weeks, we just began to understand what was really going on. When they started missile strikes of Kharkiv, other big cities, then the panic came. How did your son get through the events which happened to your family? He took all of that quite difficult. The kid learned how to say buh, and even though he's really lazy in talking, he started to close his ears with his little hands. Now he closes his eyes. For a month or so, he had been having such terrible tantrums. He overreacted to every loud noise. Even now, when he hears the sound of the air alert, he says, "Ooh." Now there are no such tantrums. He recovered a little. But then it was really tiring. Tiring because any loud noise could cause a tantrum. I opened the water at the kitchen going to wash the dishes, and the sound of the water could make him cry. The hair dryer, I still cannot dry my hair with it. The child reacts with crying. And it's now when the time has passed. 5 months. During tantrums, he used to fall on the floor, hit his forehead, and you cannot blame your child for this because you understand his fear. You are having a hard time getting through all of this yourself, and your child can sense it. You're not in a good shape, to say the least, and it's even harder for a kid to cope with all of that. The kids are scared of every loud noise. A motorbike, moped, a car driving with loud noise. Something drops on the floor, thunder. They're just terrified, hiding. A child who is so little and does not understand the word war, she also asked at the blog post, "Mom, what's that? Is that shooting?" We said it was fireworks. We could not say it was a missile strike. It's too terrible. It can kill someone. What made you leave your city, your apartment? Constant shelling, missile strikes, bombing. February 24th, I remember. Me and my husband, we were waked up at 5 a.m. by the sound of explosions. Our son, he was sleeping in his own bed. We heard the sound of explosions. We could not figure out what was that. Then we got to the balcony and saw the shells exploding. I called my mom, who lives in the Sumy region, and I told her about the shelling. I said it was war. I could not understand what I can understand now. But then I could sense that something was really, really wrong. My mom, she didn't believe me. It can't be true. It's 24th century. Mom, I said, it's true. My hands were shaking. I could not feel cold. I was all nerves. My husband made us some coffee, and I had the cup in my hands. I could not feel how hot it was. I didn't understand what I've got to do. From the first day of war, Northern Saltovka, where we lived, they have been wiping it off the face of earth. Shootings, shellings, and bombing never stopped. People didn't understand what they have got to do. The basements have been opened, and we began to drag there everything we had under our hands. Nobody believed the war could start. Mattresses, I remember, picnic chairs, blankets. We got down into the basement. We stayed there for 3 or 4 days because the kids got sick. It was so cold, so we returned to the apartment. On the day 6, under constant shelling, I was even cooking there. You are getting used to it when you hear it all the time. Though it's impossible job to get used to this horror, they say. So, really massive shelling started on the day 6. I remember we were sitting in the hallway, having laid some blankets there, and our child, he was sleeping there. The child is so little, he can't understand why you should not run near the windows anymore. Why not? It's his home, his territory. And there are his parents saying no to everything. I remember we hidden our son with our bodies, and our high-rise building shuddered so much, you know. I only prayed. I prayed so much when my dad passed away. And all of us were praying around him. This happened a year before the war. He died. But then, under shelling, I was praying for the one thing, that if we had to die, I only asked for my son to be saved from the ruins of the building. That was my prayer. Then we heard some extreme roar and we couldn't figure out what was that. So we looked out the windows and we saw how a missile struck an apartment in the building right next to ours. And we knew there were people in that apartment. We saw them. And I saw a man on fire in that apartment. I was standing frozen with horror. I wish no one would see things like that. Never. He was just screaming. My husband reacted instantly. He said, "We are leaving." They started to let people down on the ropes. He said, "How are we gonna get the ropes on our little son, our Mikhailik, who's only 2 years old? We had to leave this place." Why did you go? 2 reasons. First one, there was one guy in town administration, Sergei Gaidai. He asked people to go and leave the city. He asked on the internet and offline. He said that people had to leave the town and let the military forces do their job, because at that moment they could not risk the civilians' lives. They said it would be better for them to work on the enemy without thinking that the civilians' lives are at risk. Second reason, the water and heating of the apartment were off. We left at the beginning of the April, but there were no heating in March. Actually, in my apartment there were no heating from the first day of war, February 24th. So we decided to leave. That's why. You understand, sitting in a cold apartment without any food, water, help. You can get this. It's not easy. So we decided to leave town. By we, I mean the Fedorchuk family, who saved me and let me stay with them. I was sitting in the corner all the time, and I was praying. That's all I was able of doing. Because you're sitting and then there is sound. It starts. It's like a spring that's wound, louder, then silent. And then explosion. The window glass is everywhere. The building is shaking, so it's terrible. Dima runs to me and cries, Aunt Lena, come and hide in the corner. The glass of the windows can wound you. So he wanted me to hide in the corner. You know, they're almost all Russian speaking people. And there was a saying, I learned the Russian because Lenin taught it. But I wanna forget this language because Putin speaks Russian. Irina. Yes, we could stay for a while. We had some food, made some preparations.
Перечитайте ще раз і паузу. Ви просто дочитували і почали перегортати.
Ага. А давайте я так пригорну, я пам'ятаю, що...
Ага, добре.
Irina. We could stay for a while. We had some food, made some preparations, until Russians started making their own rules. They started going to people's houses, looking for something, taking people from their own homes, torture them. Our boys, people began to live massively, and we, with our little girls, we understood we could not stay in such circumstances. Anything could happen. They were getting to our homes, making horrible things, so we decided to leave after a month and a half of occupation. First and foremost, I was afraid for my girl. After events that took place in Bucha, Irpin, Hostomel, I was afraid something could happen to her. You don't think about yourself because you're adult, you have lived some. But the child is so little and I didn't want her to see something terrible happening to her parents, grandparents, and the most awful to her. We did not go anywhere, did not leave the house. We were afraid for the children, for girls. What was the most scary thing on the road, moving so close to the block posts? You know, we were moving in a big column, more than 300 cars, and we got stuck for more than 2 hours. There was something like an agricultural company buildings nearby, and Russians started shelling from that point. This was the most frightening because with the first missiles, the first 4 ones, we thought it was pointed at us. There was a real panic, and we understood that we were wrong because we could see the smoke trails of the missiles as they were flying above in the sky. And a few minutes later, just how we recovered the shock from the previous ones, the Russians started shelling again, and then one more shelling. And we got so scared, kids, us. The explosions were so strong that we were shaking. Можна це спочатку? The explosions were so strong that the windows of the car were shaking back and forth. And after all of that, there was one more missile strike again, and finally they let us go. Having done all the shellings, they let us go. We drove through the block post, and we were driving for 10 minutes as we could see the first Ars Ukrainian block post. And we started crying. We were all emotions, everyone cried, even men. We spent a month in the basement. We stayed there all the time, we slept there, we cooked food for ourselves outside in the yard. The shelling and the shootings never stopped. And as soon as you get outside to add something to your food or something, and it starts and you had to run away and hide. You know, in my age, got lost without your own home, without your own apartment, means what? That I'm gonna live at some shelters for the rest for my life? It was terrible. I was walking through the city and a major 10-block house started falling apart right in front of my eyes. Some missile must have destroyed it. Dead bodies were everywhere. And then, when the shelling started, I had to hide in some bushes nearby, and I saw a dead body of a man there. He must have been killed moments ago because his blood was still fresh and bright red. I left my house at 8 a.m. and got to the hospital at about 6 p.m. Can you imagine? I spent the night there. There were a lot of people spending the night. And the next day, the bus was taking us to the Volodyarsk. I got really lucky to come through that green corridor. It was still possible that period of time. And he was saying to me, today's gonna be a really massive enemy attack, and we need you to go down to the basement with us. My wife is already cooking there. And I asked him, how do you know about this? He said that Gaidai was asking people to go, and this was not a secret for anybody. He has just came to let me know about it. And at the very same moment, in our yard, right in front of my apartment, the projectile came and exploded. One splinter flashed and a second one got into my window. I was standing right in front of the window and I have made just a step from it. Roma was staying closer to the wall. He was a smart guy. He sensed what you have to do in such cases. And I had 3 flowers on my windowsill, and one piece of the projectile got stuck in it, got stuck in the flower pot. And he said to me, here's Irina Dmitrievna, your 2nd birthday. Your flower saved your life. Marina.
Поміняється. Давайте я, напевно, поділю. 12 хвилин.
Did you have any personal loss during this war? Actually, I did. A missile got into the house where we used to live 2 years ago. And unfortunately, a 40-year-old boy was killed then. We knew his family very well. He was a friend of my kids. He was from a military family and they are now on the front line of this war. And they lost their lone child in this war. It's really hard to talk about it, really, really painful. But for us, he's a hero. He had died running out of the basement because he wanted to warn the elderly people who did not have cell phones that the air alarm had started. And this kid, he wanted to warn them that they should hide. And he saved their lives, but he was the only one person to die then. And I just want everyone to remember him and remember the price that we pay to this war. What are you thinking about right now? To tell the truth, First of all, I am really scared for those who decided to stay on the occupied territories or just was not capable to get away, because there are now so many atrocities going on. Russians are doing whatever they want. They catch everyone they want without any particular reason. They catch them and kill them. They kill young men. I know that 3 of your friends were killed. Yes. Yes, 3 of our friends were killed. Tell me what they were killed for. Because there are people who help the Russian troops, collaborators. They are everywhere. Somebody are really stubborn and enthusiastic collaborators. And they tell every step of yours to Russians. If they don't like something you did, they go to Russians and Russians decide what to do with your life, with your destiny. And our friends wanted to remove the Russian flag. A Russian tricolor was located in the collaborator's yard. And one guy was shot at the same scene in this yard, and the other 2 were tortured to death. Olena, what do you dream about? We are alive, we must live, and we must dream about something. I dream about the moment when our troops will kick out the Russians from our land and my city, even if it's gonna be ruined, and with all the buildings that have fallen apart. I want it to be ours again. I want to return back to my own apartment. My dreams, they are the same as every Ukrainian's. Peace. I want the least amount of our militaries to die. Finally, peace to come. We need to stop this war. We need to break down the Russian Federation's spine to stop this war. I imagine myself coming into my room, sometimes trying to remember how I left all my things in the room when I was moving away. We dream about coming home, but we are afraid to return. Дівчинка, what do you dream about? I dream about this war to come to an end, and I wanna go home. I dream about coming home. The basis of security is love. Phil Boston. That's really true. To have a secure life, there has to be peace, love, happiness. The things which have been taken away from us, things we are now dreaming about, things we are going to return back. Thank you for being with us. We wish peace to everyone, all countries, all people, the whole planet.